When I realize that something that I thought was a fundamental right is not a fundamental right, that is deeply troubling. Over 90% of Americans agree with the definition of traditional parental rights, which is that we have the right to direct the upbringing and education of our children as we see fit.
We are getting very far away from our founders' idea in the Declaration that we hold these truths to be self-evident.
The problem with explaining parents' rights to a person as compared to free speech rights, free speech, you say, go look in the First Amendment, there it is. But for parents' rights, there's no place to go look. You have to go read a bunch of Supreme Court decisions to see how they found it, what they've done to it in the meantime, and it's an evolving standard. That's the problem.
For the first time in American history, a majority of the Supreme Court no longer treats the parent's right to control and direct the upbringing of their child as a fundamental liberty.
I'm an average father. I love my family, I love my wife, I love my children. I never thought that my rights as a parent would be taken away from me.
He didn't start passing out until you upped the dosage on those medications you put him on.
I'm afraid this appears to be something else.
And he asked about doing a drug screen, and I said, yeah, that'll be fine.
I suggest you do a drug screen just to be sure.
And he said, oh, by the way, I cannot get the medical records to my son without his permission because the law says so.
He has to give us permission for those results?
Children are entitled to medical privacy. We cannot release children's medical results to parents.
How could somebody tell me that the law says that a parent cannot get medical records of their minor child?
I have to ask my 13-year-old for permission.
I'm just following federal guidelines. This is his right.
We're his parents. What about our rights?
It's not right. It's outrageous. It's offensive to think that that would go on.
In the medical field, this happens frequently. And it's not just in the medical field, but this also happens in the area of educating our own children.
It started in the 2004-2005 school year.
So Dave handed me Jake's things. I looked at what Jake had brought home. It wasn't just his book bag, it was also another book bag.
This is about introducing to my child sexuality issues at a very early age.
And he teaches in kindergarten?
It is our parental right to be able to be notified when they're doing this to our children and have the option to opt our children out.
The principal agreed to meet with us the following Friday.
I think you're both misinformed.
She basically directed us to a gay, lesbian, straight educational network workshop. I don't want to discuss heterosexuality and homosexuality or the comparisons between the two at this early age, and they made it very clear that they've decided to introduce this to young children, and they were willing to do it behind the backs of parents and without opt-out. We went to the principal.
I wanted to catch you before you leave and let you know that we've both decided that we still want Jake opted out of these lessons.
I'm afraid we can't do that.
We had one final meeting.
All we're asking is for you to make an exception for one child, just one child.
I think we could work something out.
And as I was sitting there, I thought, finally, we're getting some accommodation. Who are we talking about here? We're talking about my child. I'm not talking about the rest of the school. We didn't say, never do this. We said, when you do it, as they stated they would, notify us first, and we want the option to opt out if we don't think he's ready for that. What I didn't realize was they were formulating another plan. They were keeping me there by leaving me with this promise and calling the police.
Mr. Parker, need to have a word with you.
What? I want my son opted out, and I'm not leaving here until they agree to do that.
When I was let out and put in the police car, I thought to myself, how far are they willing to go to deny us our parental rights?
The heartbreak of moms and dads around the country is becoming universal.
These are real-life domestic issues that happen in this country on a regular basis.
The legal situation for parents' rights is like a perfect storm. There's a threat from international law and there's a threat from domestic law. The international law threat is the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. If that becomes the law of this country, then every parenting decision will go through the filter of the UN's standards for how children should be raised.
A fit, loving parent who cares for their children is now put in the same position as an unfit, abusive parent under the provisions of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Our supremacy clause says that treaties are part of the highest law of the land and they override anything in state laws or state constitution. So this treaty comes into place, state laws are out, and the UN runs our families.
President Clinton, during his administration, approved this treaty. So all that is left for the Convention on the Rights of the Child Treaty to be part of the supreme law of the land is for 2/3 of the United States Senate to say we want it to be so.
This generation has to fight to preserve and protect parents' rights in the Constitution of the United States so that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren can have the protections they need to be successful.
The Parental Rights Amendment is an effort to put the traditional legal standards of parents get to make decisions for their kids into the actual text of the Constitution. Whenever the government says, we're going to make the decision for you with the Parents' Rights Amendment, you're going to say, no, we'll make that decision as a family.
Parental rights is not a right-wing movement. It is not a left-wing movement. It is the correct movement.
The U.S. law already protects kids in those extreme cases where there is physical abuse and those types of things. The Parental Rights Amendment leaves that type of legislation in place.
The Convention on the Rights of the Child is really an insidious plot when you think about it. It's the government believing that they can take over our families and do a better job with our kids.
As a parent, I could lose my rights to raise my children. That has led me to become involved.
If you won't get involved in protecting your families, what's it going to take?
If you believe, as a parent, that you are in the best position to care for and make decisions for your child, then you ought to go to parentalrights.org and sign the petition.
Once you've signed the petition, there are many other ways you can help. Tell others about the amendment, write your local paper, and contact your congressman. You can also make a difference by giving financially to parentalrights.org.
The best way to protect the child is to empower their parent to make the decisions that are in their best interests.